Hello, I am Ronan Chris Murphy, and I am a record producer and engineer, and I operate Veneto West Mastering in Southern California. And earlier in the week, I did a video about spatial audio and some kind of underhanded tricks that Apple is using to try and convince people to like it. But I want to talk about something that I mentioned briefly at the end of the last video that I think merits its own standalone video. And that's this problem, which I find to be very, very serious. So spatial music, Dolby Atmos, it's this thing where they are taking tracks and remixing them in new ways, creating more ambience, generally adding more reverb, and doing a lot of different spatial processing so that when you listen on headphones or an Atmos surround system, you get this different experience of the music. You hear it in a different way. Do I have a problem with that? Absolutely not. And when I've listened so far, some of the tracks actually sound pretty good, some of them actually sound pretty bad, and some kind of eh. And so that's all good and well. And even me personally, part of my business, I remix and I remaster classics. So I've taken classic records by bands like King Crimson or Gwar, and I've remixed those and reimagined those in different ways. And it's great fun for me, good for my business, and the fans seem to really dig it. We've kind of have a new way to look at existing classics. But Apple is doing something that I find very concerning, and actually I hope a lot of people make a big fuss about. So with this new system and Apple Music, these new modified, spacey, whatever versions, if you have headphones or in a system that can play back these, Apple will default to playing you this newfangled version. So why does that suck? Let me give you an example. Here's a photo of the Mona Lisa, one of the most famous paintings of all time. Many people believe one of the greatest paintings of all time. But look what I have done with new modern technology. Here in this version, what I've done, you can see that I've thinned her out a little bit, trimmed her up. I've smoothed out her face a little bit, looking a little bit prettier. I've done some blur effects in the background and some dramatic lighting effects to give a more 3D immersive experience. Does it suck that I did that? I don't know. It's something I had fun doing. It's a new way to look at this classic piece. But just imagine now that if you were searching for the Mona Lisa, somebody told you about this iconic painting, and you went to Apple Art and typed in the Mona Lisa, and because of the settings on your computer, the one that popped up was mine and not the way Leonardo da Vinci painted it. Would that suck? Absolutely it would suck. It was terrible. It's awful. Again, my version is fun. Go around on the web, you'll see other people who've mucked up the Mona Lisa. And it's fun, it's interesting, creative, blah, blah. But the definitive one is as Leonardo da Vinci painted it. The same is true with making records. When we're in the studio producing, mixing, there will be battles about how loud you should mix the tambourine or how much reverb should be on the lead vocal. It is a struggle, breaks up relationships. Amazing. It's just intense work. And the end result is the art as intended by the artists and the producers and the mixers to the best of their ability. So now, let's say fast forward 5 years, 10 years, 30, 40 years even, 50 years even, we're having these things that the masters are being taken and remixed by new people many times without any involvement of the artists or the producers involved, and they're creating these new versions and making them. Is that a bad thing? No, like I said, I sometimes remix things where the artists aren't around, but here's the difference. On those albums that I've remixed, it's very clear. This is the 30th anniversary remix or on Chris Murphy's remix of something. And so when you go out into the world to look for those, the original is available, as is my remix. Same thing with many mixers around the world. And so it's a great thing. All these new formats, they're fun, they're exciting. But when we default to this new version that many times had no input from the artists and the producers and the original mixers, we're actually doing the music equivalent of my ridiculous Mona Lisa modification and presenting it as the real one. That's what Apple is doing to you when you have spatial music on by default. So I'm not going to diss the format. It's fun. It's always fun to rework things in a different way or revisit things you love in a classic way. But it's a huge problem if we're going to have this situation where people are going to seek out music they've heard about, and the version they get is not the definitive version, but some modification that was made many times without the artists and the producers involved. So I and many other producers and engineers that I know are absolutely turning that off by default. I'm going to continue to listen because sometimes it's fun and I'm always listening to things to learn more. But as default, when I'm listening and trying to connect with great musical masters, I will absolutely have spatial audio off by default, and I will turn it on when I want to revisit a classic and hear it in a new way. So, and I kind of hope you will too, because this is a big deal, and I'm really hoping that lots of people will make a fuss about it so that when Apple releases these new versions, they are clearly identified and you have a choice without going into your preferences about whether you want the classic version or the new modified version.